Philip, it's good to have you.
Hi, thanks for inviting me. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, thank you for coming. So, I know that you are doing a PhD in neuroscience. So, this talk is specifically on finding the area where the modern deep learning algorithms are borrowing their ideas from neuroscience. So, before diving deep into deep learning and neuroscience, I would like to explain us what neuroscience is in simple terms.
Yeah, thanks. So, in basic terms, right, as the name suggests, it's the science that is all about the single neurons up to nervous systems, right? So, I mean, there's neuroscientists that just look at single cells in some very small basic organisms, right? What we call sometimes hard neuroscience.
Mm-hmm.
And then, more my end of the spectrum is cognitive and systems neuroscience. We actually look at, okay, these brain regions are active and are connected in this particular way, while a human is performing this action or perceiving this particular thing.
All right.
Yeah.
So I know that you're doing your PhD in neuroscience at Hamburg University, but could you just
Yes.
give us a little bit of your background to my audience who are watching this talk?
Of course. So I'm doing a PhD at the Institute of Systems Neuroscience at the University Medical Center here in Hamburg.
Mm-hmm.
And our institute is all about cognitive and systems neuroscience, meaning we use fMRI mainly, but also EEG measures. I think probably both of these medical devices are kind of known to most people.
Yeah.
But so we basically do experiments and then record that data
Mm-hmm.
and try to find more out about what people are doing when perceiving things, or for example, perceiving pain, speech, visual things, doing planning, tasks, goals, lots of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we do a lot of data analysis on that. And so me particularly, I'm doing a PhD at the intersection of social perception and social communication
Okay.
and speech perception, where these intersect.
Okay. So I think this is a very, pretty much new field of study, because I think if, for example, 10 years ago, there wasn't a field like in neuroscience. It wasn't taught at the universities, but I think recently, if you search and go for any universities, you'll find this discipline being taught in almost, all the universities around the globe.
True.
Yeah. So let's just dive deeper into our main talks today, and we start by some of the misconceptions that people have about the brain. So I know that there has been a lot of studies about how the brain function, but then again, sometimes it happens that if, for example, in my field, when we are talking about neurons and deep learning, and then we talk about the brain, most of our lecturers are coming and saying that unfortunately there are not enough studies about the brain. So therefore, connecting the deep learning with the brain is not really something true. Sometimes this says. So could you just tell us what are some of the common misconceptions about the human brain today?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the most sort of famous ones, maybe it's not so typical in people that are studying like neuroscience or AI or stuff like that, but more like the general population. I think is when you think about the brain as like, oh, this person is creative, so they are like left-brained, right? Or like there's these particular regions in the brain that do this one thing, like you pinpoint an area and they say, well, this is where the fear is in the brain. That's not how it works in basic terms. I think that's like a really big one.
Yeah.
And more about like sort of maybe for the AI or machine learning interested person, is that the way that current large language models work is quite abstract and has quite little to do with how the brain actually works. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we know that there's a sort of historical inspiration
Yeah.
of neural networks
Yeah.
and neuroscience, but now the two have, not a lot in common anymore, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. So could you just tell us how does the brain actually learn? Because if we talk about the current LLM models, you see that they depends on a lot of data, like maybe the entire data on the internet. When you want to train an LLM, you have to feed it with a lot of data, like maybe petabytes of data,
Yeah.
so that the model would be able to learn something. Could you just tell us something how the brain actually learn?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, one interesting thing is that, and this is a major difference, is that the brain starts off with a huge amount of connections, and then over time, when it learns, actually reduces the connections,
Yeah.
which is already a major difference. And you so as a human, you don't start off like as a baby, for example, you don't start off with a clean slate. So you already have certain, if you want in AI, certain weights and certain
Yeah.
connections that have some predefined weights.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's a major point of difference.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you, I mean, ask me just about how learning works, like in very easy terms,
Yeah.
that neurons that fire together wire together is the short saying.
Yeah.
And so so this is connected to lots of biological mechanisms, which maybe goes into too much detail here.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the basic principle.
How neuroscience inspired the modern AI models. So, for example, the modern neural networks and also specifically the deep learning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
So the whole idea that you do learning, or you do machine learning in this way of having layers of neurons that just continue from one abstraction to another abstraction to another abstraction,
Yeah.
that's very much inspired by the layers, for example, of the cortex. It's very much inspired, especially from visual neuroscience, where we see, for example, in the convolutional neural networks, like there's a lot of parallels in particular in there,
Yeah.
right? Because that's sort of how it works with the cells, right? That you have
Hmm.
simple cells and they go into more complex cells in the very early stages of visual processing in the brain. Yeah.
Hmm. So, could you just tell us that which area of neuroscience do you think that AI research are borrowing the most of the ideas from?
Yeah. So it's, I mean, apart from the one I just mentioned, so the deep convolutional neural networks and visual neuroscience,
Hmm.
is probably the reinforcement learning, right? So the idea that you put some kind of reward, and then the system, or whatever system you have, natural, biological, artificial, learns based on that particular reward, and it just all aligns based on that.
Yeah.
That is, yes, has some parallels with the dopamine systems. Yeah.
Yeah. So to make this learning process, to summarize this learning process, could you just tell us that what are the big differences between how a neural network is learning and how the brain is learning? Could you just short it, like sort of tell that in a simple word for us?
I think, in simple word, I would say mm, creative one shot
Mm-hmm.
is human,
Yeah.
and big data, clean architecture is artificial.
Could
Yeah.
you elaborate on the way that brain learns? Could you just elaborate more on that? How does so you said that there's a difference between learning, and you mentioned something about you said the one shot learning, right? Could you
Yeah, yeah.
could
So
you,
when you so I have a also like a background in psychology, right?
yeah.
So one of the things, I mean, we look at humans and how humans, babies learn, right, and how you grow up. And so one of the things is that you have experiences of learning where you have one particular experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is enough for learning. So that's a really like a one-shot learning.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's connected to emotions. Let's say your parents are telling you about pain, right?
Yeah.
And but you have to touch that hot stove just once to
Yeah.
make sure that this is how it feels. Like this is the logic, and it got warmer when I got close, all
Mm-hmm.
of these things. But then how is it one-shot learning? Well, the brain and what you do with emotion as well, and with thought and planning in your prefrontal cortex, is you think about other scenarios, right?
Yeah.
So you start projecting, you have it in your memory, and you can transfer from one situation to many.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't need to touch that hot stove or something other that is very hot any more than just once.
Okay. So one of the area that AI algorithms are really good at is now the natural language processing, and specifically the LLMs model that there are a lot of talks about them right now.
Yeah.
So, as someone who is doing neuroscience and your research is mainly focused on the studies of human brain, could you tell us that if there is one day, and I'm sure it's not yet done, but if there is one day that we can understand how the structure of the brain is and how
Mhm.
really the brain works, because I know there have been a lot of studies, but I think there are a lot in a lot of ambiguities on the functions of the brain as well. Could you
Yeah.
tell us that if one day the scientists are able to understand the brain better,
Yeah.
will it also cause the design of more advanced AI systems in other different fields as well, not only in NLP?
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they just started simulating brains that are, I mean, not human size,
Yeah.
but I think the largest that we've gotten is like a part of a cat. I think maybe a prefrontal cortex of a cat, or like the whole nervous system of like a fruit fly, or something
Yeah.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
But so these simulations, they have
Yeah.
been quite extensive. You need huge amounts of resources. But I
Mm-hmm.
mean, yes, theoretically. So if we can really simulate,
Mm-hmm.
down to the neural level, the whole
Yeah.
human brain,
Yeah.
I'm sure that would be like an insane learning experience.
Mm-hmm.
And from there on, you can simplify, you can test, you can take out lots of like modules, right, that
Mm-hmm.
would correspond to different brain areas, and it would be a huge deal, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you think that AI and specifically not only the NLP model, but other models as well, could even reach that level of human cognition one day? So you think that
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
possible?
I think if you could go so far as to simulate that and have the computation time be as fast as it is in our, brains,
Yeah.
I think you could.
Mm-hmm.
I actually don't know if that's, like the best goal to have
Mm-hmm.
it human-like,
Yeah.
because I guess, when you think about humans, there's also lots of drawbacks with emotion, unpredictability,
Yeah.
right? So maybe it's not the goal to have an exact replica,
Mm-hmm.
just to improve our AI models.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it certainly would be informative.
Okay. So, what are some of the ethical challenges at the intersection of neuroscience and AI today? Could you point that as well for us?
Yeah, so since we do use machine learning,
Yeah.
maybe not the most advanced AI stuff, but we do use some machine learning, for example, for decoding brain signals, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we put people into one of those machines, e.g., MEG, fMRI, and you have a lot of data to train on. Then you can
Mm-hmm.
actually decode from the brain signal, oh, this person, was thinking about this particular thing. When
Yeah.
they were listening to this word, right? So you can actually get quite a lot of, I mean, almost personal insight to what people are thinking and feeling. Now, provided you have huge amounts of data for that particular person.
Okay.
And I think that's a privacy and sort of ethical challenge. Like, really, do you want to, decode a person's thoughts? Do you want to go that far?
Yeah.
And how do you make sure it's actually protected?
Yeah.
That's difficult. I think that's the main one I'm thinking about. Yeah.
I was listening to an interview of Andrew Ng with Feifei Li, that they are the pioneers of AI in Stanford. And they were
Mhm.
talking about this idea of artificial general intelligence, that we have an AI system that will be able to do what a normal human being is actually doing. So,
Yeah.
according to you, according to the studies that you do now in the neuroscience field, do you think that one day you will be able to have that level of intelligence?
I think it's certainly possible. Like when you phrase the question as like one day, I think so. Like for example, one of the things that fascinates me is called neuromorphic computing,
Yeah.
where not as in the current form with the current silicon von Neumann computers, but more of a very biologically inspired computing architecture. You can actually reach very highly efficient, like spiking neural network type of stuff, and you can construct that. And when you go into that route, and maybe you can start simulating, more and more complexity in the brain, right? Just the amount of parameters you would need in a model that fire very efficiently is, a couple of magnitudes of order higher than what is currently done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think when you go to that level of complexity, you might be able to do it. Yeah.
What does this activation actually means in a biological neuron?
That's a great question. So, I mean, first of all, the activation functions, to my knowledge, that I used in current AI with, for example, ReLU,
or
right?
sigmoid, yeah.
I mean, of course, they are hugely different from how it
works
in the biological brain.
Yeah.
Now, the basic idea is still the same, that a particular pattern of, let's say, you have 100 neurons in layer 1 and you have 100 neurons in layer 2. Right? A particular activation pattern in the layer beforehand will lead to a particular activation pattern in the next layer. So it represents a different level of abstraction. So that is the exact same principle, but in the brain you have this weird thing where, I mean, yes, one layer connects to another, but you have skipping layers, right? You have very long range connections. The connections are not of the same quality. So you have stronger and weaker connections. Those are modulated by neurotransmitters. They can change, right? The neuroplasticity, it remains, right? So you can have very simple effects that, like when I say one word and I say a word that is connected, right? There was a very, very brief moment of plasticity in your brain, right? Where a particular pathway and pattern of neurons was activated, so the next one was already ready, even though the two don't have anything to do with each other.
Yeah.
That's quite different.
What advice would you give to people who are interested in the field of neuroscience? Where exactly they have to start, and where exactly they can find the sort of resources that they help them to start from the basic level to intermediate and also to advanced level?
Yeah. So I think from your perspective and from the perspective of the intersection between neuroscience and AI, you might want to look at everything that has the label cognitive science on it, where it's really about those technical details. Now, because if you were to study just AI in particular, right, you would learn about probably transformer architecture, attention blocks, etc., etc. Then you're quite far removed from neuroscience. If you learn about cognitive neuroscience, for example, you're getting very close to psychology, like me. So all of these things will be, a bit hard to use, a bit less useful for that particular intersection. So I think hard neuroscience plus cognitive science is the way to go if somebody's really interested in that particular intersection, which I think is interesting. But I think we have to acknowledge that making current architectures more biologically inspired, we don't know what that leads to, right? So that can just lead to some difference in current performance in the AI models that we have. But what does that performance mean, right? It's a bit hard to tell. So it might not be useful to make them more biologically inspired unless you reach a certain scale of it, for example. But I mean, I'm sort of just guessing here.
Yeah. Okay. So I know you're busy, Philip, and you you're busy with your studies and research, and your field is not really easy as well. So I think people who are I personally enjoyed this talks, and I'm sure that people who are watching this talks as well, they will enjoy as well. I know it's a quite short time that we elaborate on all the things that you have in the field, or me as someone who's doing AI and artificial intelligence. And I'm really thankful to you. Thanks for your time, and I would like to hear from you in the future as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, and have a nice day.
You too.